All I did here was drill a hole with an 1/8" bit because I have an 1/8" rivet. So this rivet is a pop rivet. It's made of aluminum. And this length right here has to be longer than the combination of the two pieces of metal I'm sticking together. I can take my two pieces of metal and drill a hole. I can drill it with a regular cordless hand drill or with a drill press, as long as these aren't moving. I want to make sure that all of these are lined up. So say I have, say I'm working in a car and I'm trying to put floor pans in a car. And I got this piece of metal and that piece of metal, and I want to drill through, but I want all my holes to line up before I start pop riveting them, because I don't want to pop rivet and then have it permanently stuck together. Well, not permanently, because you can drill these back out. But I want to pop rivet and then realize, oh shoot, I need to move something. So I would take my drill and I would drill it together, and I take one of these guys, and this is a special pair of pliers. I slide that in, and when I push down on this, you can see that this collapses when I push down on it. When I let go of it, it widens out and it's got a little edge to it that I can grab onto. So I'll push it out, I'll slide it right in there, and then I know that that's holding in place. I could do that with the center one if I wanted. I don't think I necessarily need to. But you can see that if I have a large piece, I can drill the first hole, set this in, drill the second hole, set it in, and then it's not going to shift a lot. And I can go all the way around the piece, setting these guys, and I have a whole bunch of them. I brought them from home, but you guys are more than welcome to use these. Knowing that everything's in the right place. All these holes are lined up. You get into 2, 3 holes, not too hard to line up. 10, 15, 20, 50 holes, it's really hard to line up. So I would potentially get a number of these set up and in place. And essentially how I do it is, once everything's in place and I know it's where I want it and I like it, and you can see there it's coming out the other side, that's where I want it, and I'm going to do this hole here. I'll take my pop rivet and I'll set it down into the hole. And you notice I do not need to have clean metal for a pop rivet. It can be painted. It's perfectly fine. My rivet is an 1/8" rivet, and I made an 1/8" hole. This is my 1/8" drill bit. So if I'm using 1/8" pop rivets, I just make all my holes 1/8", they'll fit right in. This is a pop rivet gun. Pop rivet gun will allow me to compress this, and as I pull this nub at the end of this, it's like a little nail, at the end is a little rounded nub, it will pull it through, expanding and spreading the metal on this side of it, holding it in place essentially like this thing does, but permanently. And it's aluminum, so as it pulls pressure on it, it's just going to snap the aluminum and it'll come off pretty flush right there. With the pop rivet gun, I have several different types of nozzles that I can use depending on the size of the rivet that I'm using. When I put this down, first off, I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any interference from my clamps. I'm going to pull this out in order to open those jaws on the inside of the pop rivet. It's going to slide all the way down. I want there to be no gap in between my bottom of my pop rivet and the bottom of my pop rivet and the top of my metal. I want no gap. And just for the sake of it, I'm going to put my safety glasses down. I'm going to pull down on this. You can see here it's already collapsed and pulled that in, pushing the metal out. It's done it once. I'm going to release it, press the tip of the pop rivet down, and it's probably going to break right off. Then I got to release this guy out and try not to drop that on the floor. But there's my pop rivet. So this is generally the side that it's facing. And you want that facing because it's aesthetically more pleasing than this. And then I'll take my Take my next guy off. Get another pop rivet. Slide it in. And because I used these clamps, I know everything's going to line up. Close the gap between the pop rivet and the metal. Pull down. Release. Bring that pop rivet gun to all the way to the top of the material. And it pops loose. Again, pretty straightforward. Probably a little slower than the spot welder, but this, I can have a massive 2 pieces of metal, drill holes in between and pop rivet these, whereas that's only able to spot weld as deep as the jaws, right? So I can only fit metal in between on that one, cut like 6 inches. And then I'll finish up with my final clamp, and I could put a 3rd rivet in there. Rivets, any questions? Pretty straightforward? All right. Those are a few pretty easy ways to attach 2 pieces of metal without having to weld. Spot welder technically is welding, but it's not like very involved. It's pretty quick and easy. These are both cold methods with very little expense to how you're connecting the metal. This is using thicker metal, this is using thinner metal. Got it? All right, let's go over to cutting.